Welcome to the Mppl Podcast, where we cover unsolved mysteries every single week. This is your host, Macen Hodas.
Hi, I'm co-host Princess Ripley.
Hi, I'm Prashna Rai, and I'm just going to be listening in on this week's podcast.
Today, we are talking about how a Selectroucution Matchmaker Game at Reds leads to the death of a 28-year-old female.
How could a matchmaker game lead to someone's death?
First off, I need to point out that this case took place in April of 1978, so it's almost been 45 years, and to the newer listeners, we only cover unsolved cases, so this case is yet to be solved today.
Leslie Barker was a white woman who was born in Bay City, Michigan. She had lived in Akron since 1966. She followed in the footsteps of her father, who was the dean of the College of Education at UA, and got a teaching degree from the University of Akron.
She was 28 years old at this time, and was in her third year of teaching as a special education teacher at Hotchkiss.
She taught 17 students. Her colleagues say that she was especially kind-hearted and was a perfect fit for being a teacher to special kids who needed extra love and attention.
Really? She sounded like a great person. It's a great tragedy of what happened to her.
Yeah, she loved her students as if they were her own children.
On Friday nights or weekends, she would go out with friends once a week. She would often visit Reds on Waterloo Road, which was a popular dance club at this time.
Was she in a relationship at all, or is that why she went to this matchmaker game?
She had been in a few relationships, but none of them were really long-term.
When Reds hosted a matchmaker game to find lunks among the patrons of the club, Leslie Barker took this as an opportunity.
On the night of April 5th, 1978, Leslie Barker and an unnamed friend of hers went to the Reds bar.
To add on, they had also invited a third person, Sandy Shaw, who was a counselor at Hotchkiss Elementary School, but she declined as she was a divorced mother who had 2 kids at home.
Yes, I was just about to mention that. Shaw retired back in 2005, but she is still one of the few who hopes to get an answer or closure to this case. In a recent interview, she stated, "I wouldn't do this if I didn't want this brought back to light."
In a police report filed by Officer Williams and Fuller, Leslie Barker's body had been found in the back of a burning automobile. At 5:50 a.m., a resident on Mentor Road reported to the Akron Fire Department that he and his wife heard 3 loud explosions and looked outside to see flames in the darkness.
Firefighters arrived at the scene at 5:59 a.m. and found a 1977 orange Grand Prix set on fire alongside the railroad tracks. Detectives were then able to trace the license plate back to the Barkers' home, a mile away from the scene. It was confirmed from dental records that the body was Leslie Barker. Summit County ruled Barker's death as an asphyxiation.
So wait, when did the firefighters find her body? Was it until after putting out the fire?
Yes, it was only until after the firefighters put out the fire that Barker was found in the back of the car.
Were there any evidence or traces left behind?
Sadly, no. After putting out the fire, the gravel beside the car destroyed any possible footprints and tire tracks.
Wow, so the fire department ruined evidence that could have possibly been the key to solving this case?
Yes, but they did what they had to do. I'm sure it was all in a rush of the moment, and they would have never thought that someone could have been inside the car.
Her body was so badly burned that they couldn't tell if she'd been sexually assaulted or not.
So her family and friends never got any sort of closure because nothing could have been determined or even ruled out?
Are you always falling asleep during specific classes like ELA? We have just the product for you. Introducing the newly invented caffeine capsules. You can now skip the daily run to Starbucks and simply pop one of these before breakfast. Perfect for students who stay up doing Mr. Burger's homework or studying for his weekly tests. Pick up a box at your nearest Walgreens or Walmart. A full month supply for the low cost of $15.99. Side effects and terms may apply.
Can we talk more into detail about what happened at the bar? Like, was there an argument or physical altercation that could have led to this?
No, there was absolutely no lead.
One of Barker's high school classmates from Firestone said that he saw Barker and her friend at the bar for 4 hours talking to a couple of guys.
Yeah, Shapiro was the son of the bar's owner, and he stated that Barker always seemed to be in a good mood and didn't drink that much.
Shapiro said that he served her 2 screwdriver cocktails, which is usually 2 parts of orange juice and 1 part vodka.
So I'm assuming that means she wasn't too drunk, right? Just 2 shots of vodka in 4 hours?
Well, we can assume, but we can't say that for sure. Shapiro said that she never drank too much, so she could have had a lower alcohol tolerance despite going to the club every week.
Shapiro doesn't know when she left the bar, but last saw her around 1 a.m.
Did detectives ever interview any of the guys she was seen chatting with?
Yes, detectives interviewed all the people she talked to at the bar and all her past partners.
One person did stand out though. Macen, do you want to talk about the guy who worked at the airport?
Yes, the police originally focused their investigation on this one guy who Barker met through the Selectroucution dating activity. He was 30 years old and worked at the Akron-Canton Airport for United Airlines.
Barker met up with him at the bar and then offered to take him to her home so that he would know where it was for future dates.
Whoa, let's backtrack a little. She drove him to her house?
Yes, as unusual as this sounds, her friend claimed that this was not unusual and that she often did this to new friends and dates just because it was a little bit hard to find her house.
Yeah, I know it seems off, but she just wanted to show them how to get to her house. And remember, this was back in the 1970s, so I'm sure this used to be a little bit more common than it is now.
After that, Barker drove him back to the Red's bar, and they both left in separate ways at 2:45 a.m. The man offered to take a lie detector test and passed twice.
I must say that the police did seem to try their best to solve the case, though. They interviewed lots of people, stopping cars and people from the path, from Red's, to Barker's house and the scene. They also talked to newspaper delivery people and gas stations and restaurant employees.
But sadly, no leads turned up.
After a few weeks, it was discovered that the fuel that was used was a little unusual.
It was a fuel that was high in octane and commonly used in airplanes.
Wait, didn't that one guy work at the airport?
Yes, detectives immediately thought of the guy who worked at the airport, but in the end, he was ruled out.
What? There's no way it had to be him.
Nope. He was cleared because 1, he didn't have access to airplane fuel, and 2nd, it wasn't even airplane fuel. And that's basically all the information we have.
It's been well over 4 decades, and with the lack of evidence, detectives to this day are not getting any closer to solving this case. Unless someone gives a tip and we have a new lead to go off of, it seems that this case will not be solved. Well, this is going to be the conclusion of this week's podcast.
This was a truly tragic case. Leslie Barker was a great person and still had her whole life ahead of her.
Even though it may be very unlikely, I hope that this case does get solved eventually, so we can get justice and closure for her family, friends, and the whole Akron community.
Be sure to tune in for the next Mppl podcast.